everybody. This is Sheea Shafer from Maui, your professional best friend, relationship love coach, Tantra expert, all that good stuff. And I'm in the throes of moving this week to Haiku from Kihei, but I felt led to do this video because it's been on my heart. I've been hearing a lot about it from clients, friends, girlfriends, and I'll even weave some of my own life into this. And I've never really heard anybody talk about these specific things that I'm going to discuss today, which is, bringing more awareness to men and women and the roles they both play in the success of a relationship. There's some programming that we're both affected by, through media and our culture, and I've just become, super aware of it lately, and I feel that I am able to communicate some things that will be really key to bring understanding to both genders around, so that you can be inspired to go about it differently. And it has to do specifically with sexuality, because I am a Tantra relationship coach. And so, people are sharing a lot of these personal things with me, and it gets me thinking and, downloading and channeling and so forth about, solutions to these things that are popping up. So without further ado, so I'm aware of some of the things that show up when you're in a new relationship and you're ready to go into the sexual arena of your relationship. And unfortunately, we have to just laugh at our culture because, especially in America, we're a pretty dysfunctional sexual culture, and there's really nothing to do but laugh about it anymore, and just shake our head and, be as conscious and get as educated as we can. And that's why I show up on YouTube and Facebook and all that, because I really want to get this out to everyone worldwide, this education, because it's just not usually available readily, especially, Tantra. It's a very highly, mystery school kind of knowledge thing that you have to seek someone out who's even trained deeply enough to make a bearing on this field. So I'm loving contributing to that, and I hope that I contribute to your life. So in dating, what I'm noticing is that there's this programming, where men just go way too fast, sexually. I think that's just probably an ancient tendency, bless their hearts, because, when they're sexually attracted to a woman, they get activated sexually first, and then they kind of address the emotional stuff, the logical side of the relationship, the pros and cons, and they address that all later. When it's the opposite for women. Women are kind of sizing it up. Is this safe? Do I know this guy well enough? She's watching your behavior and, taking notes, and there's this big safety situation that women confront right off the bat that men sometimes aren't aware of. And so that's what I'm here to do, is bring more awareness so that you can understand what the poor other gender is going through in these moments before coming together and, unifying as a sexual couple, or whatever form it takes. And by the way, thank you. I want to make sure I remember to say thank you for your donations. They make a huge difference in me being able to expand and do this more often. And that's my desire. I would love to just educate and be able to do this for a living, because I have so much to say in so many areas of life besides these fields that I'm talking about today. And if you go to my other channel, you'll see that. So anyway, that's my intention, so please hold it for me too. So back to, men don't usually have to think about safety as much, you know. So they're just like, ooh, I'm attracted to her, you know, I want to get to know her and connect and all that. And then as a woman, she's so many women unfortunately have these kind of sad stories of being used or taken advantage of, having been sexually abused maybe at some point in their life, or gone through date rape, or maybe actually been raped outright. And there's just all this stuff where, you know, it can create walls and, you know, barriers to just coming together in a healthy relationship. So just be aware of that, men, that she's most likely, if she's a modern day woman, we've got a little bit of baggage when it comes to being taken advantage of by men. So please have compassion and proceed with grace. She's not able to be a race car like you are. We warm up and make sure everything's safe. You know, not just sexually, but other areas like, gosh, does he treat me right? Does he talk to me in a way that's respectful? You know, what's his background? And, you know, is he in integrity? And is this genuine, or is he just wanting to get off? You know, there's all these questions that we poor women have to sift through and try to, you know, be street smart about it. And a lot of us aren't so street smart, you know, necessarily. I didn't have to grow up that way. I was in more of a sheltered spiritual environment where I didn't have to like question everybody's actions. So it's not natural for me to do that, but I've had to learn how to do that over time just because of what I've experienced with men, even just myself. And I have way more skills than a lot of women out there. So it's just, oh my gosh, it's such a, you know, life sometimes is just a hot mess. and it's messy. It's like birth. We're giving birth to ourselves every day, and it's messy and it's ugly, and yet it's so beautiful and amazing too. So let's do it as consciously as we can. And so anyway, I'd like to bring out some awareness to the men right now around the reality of females when she's considering opening up to you sexually, that you're might seem to be oblivious to a lot of times, just from the stories I've heard. And I think it's because, you know, when you're turned on and you're sexually, you know, going after what you want, a lot of times it feels like your logic sort of leaves the picture, and you're not always considering how this is going to feel for her. And this is where your integrity comes in, because really building trust is the first thing you have to do as a man. She needs to feel safe, and she needs to feel like she can trust you, because then she can relax, and then she wants to open to you. And then you get so much more in the end anyway. So what I've been hearing is that, like, women, they're thinking, okay, what's the timing of my ovulation again? Because I can tell he's just expecting me to, you know, just get sexual with him, almost like there's a certain entitlement in our culture, or like we just jump in and, you know, take the risk. And then, you know, women do get the short end of the stick most of the time, just because we're not rigged to move that fast emotionally. If a man's wanting to actually go as far as to consummate, you know, this sexual union, then that means that there's a man coming into our body. That's a big decision for a woman to make. We don't just want anybody in our bodies. And you know, more than half of women don't orgasm during intercourse. So what happens too often that I'm hearing, and this has definitely been true in my experience too, and it's so sad, is that he doesn't last long enough for the woman to come. She takes 20 to 30 minutes to reach climax, and longer if there's stuff that's in the way. You know, she can tell if things aren't totally safe, or if he's really distracted, or, you know, doesn't know her body and he's just winging it or whatever. But at any rate, I guess it's really more like 20 to 30 minutes, like if you kind of know the person and your partners. So anyway, if it's like some kind of one night stand, or you're just coming together and deciding to become sexual with each other, she likely gets left behind. Unless, guys, you're making a point to make sure that she comes first, which is a good idea, to just set it in your head that she gets taken care of first, because then she knows she's safe, you're going to take care of her. Otherwise, she writes you off as just another asshole. What can I say? If you're just out for your own glory and just to get off using her body, then bad karma. That's just not going to work. But if we take it further, it's like, the guy is so excited a lot of times, it sounds like, with, just being able to be sexual with this new person, that he kind of doesn't seem to have as much mastery over his timing. And then he'll come too soon, and then she hasn't even been, isn't even warmed up yet, and then it's over like in 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and she's like, oh, did I really just open my body for that? That was so unfulfilling. So I just want to bring awareness to that to you guys, because if the positions were traded, you would definitely be going about it differently too. If you were the one that took longer to reach orgasm, and you have, more of your emotional self involved, and someone's actually entering your body and all that. I mean, it's like a big deal. It's our sacred space, and it deserves to be honored and revered, and otherwise you don't really belong there. But I guess my point overall was that, I just am tired of hearing these stories of, yeah, he's done in like 10, 15 minutes, and I'm just getting started, and then I'm left hanging. As the woman, she's left hanging, and then he doesn't seem to know that, if you're gonna do that, then you need to take care of me at least afterwards, as a bare minimum. And a lot of guys are just kind of like checked out at that point, or you're tired or whatever, and that's just not pono, as we say in Hawaii. It's just not cool. It's not an integrity. And I don't think it's registering in the male mind that that's the female experience a lot of times, where she's feeling left behind. She's feeling kind of bowled over a lot of times by how fast the man is moving. And she's not able to emotionally keep up, let alone physically. And then, if you don't have mastery over how long you last, men, which is where Tantra comes in and what I teach people every day, those techniques. And it's not rocket science either. I could teach someone over the phone with the phone sessions, and I've done it many times. And then you can last as long as you want to and practice it, so that have mastery over your timing, so that you can enjoy the experience longer and have more satisfying releases and orgasms, where there's more pleasure, because there's more time involved and there's a buildup of energy. And so, it's just, I'm just calling out that cultural unfortunateness, where, then men kind of wonder, oh, why is she not into it as much as I am? Or why is she just, kind of indifferent to sex? Or she's just, a lot of relationships later in life, she's just done. Once she reaches menopause, I've heard, so many stories where she's just over it. It's like, I've done my part, you're on your own, buddy, kind of a thing, and they've been married 20 years or whatever. And I can't help but feel like she would be more enrolled and excited and enjoying it just as much as you are, men, if she was taken care of properly. I mean, if she's left behind half the time, if you're not bringing her to orgasm, if you're only lasting 15 minutes, then she's like, oh, that's it? Okay, well, I can do without that. I think I'll pass next time, and certainly not take all the risks of possibly getting an STD, possibly getting pregnant, possibly feeling used, having that horrible sunken feeling after that 10 or 15 minutes, like, oh, really? That's all you're able to do? And you've already gotten what you wanted, and you're just going to be done now, and I'm just left here feeling completely used. So I hope that's helpful, because it seems like it's not registering. women, we have our own issues in that we really just need to stand up and have our voice and be empowered and say, hey, this is what works for me. And I've had to do it, and I teach women to do it, because our end of the spectrum where things go wrong is we've got this program from media and the culture, where we're kind of expected to be a little bit more like docile or agreeable. We're supposed to be open and loving and giving and all that, and yet it's just not really safe always to be that way. I wish it was. And it really is up to us women to say, whoa, hold your horses, slow down. You're going too fast for me. I can't keep up with you. And then there ends up being backlash. And then, she ends up, eventually it catches up with her, and she's like all up in arms, and he's like, I don't know what happened. I thought things were going great. I was having fun and la la la. And yet she's, overwhelmed by the whole thing, and, has way more at stake because of the general fact that someone else is entering her sacred space, not always respectfully or with proper wooing or romancing or courting or whatever you want to call that, even just without, a lot of times without the proper foreplay. If she's not wet, she's not ready. And I suggest that men ask, are you ready to go to the next step? Or does this feel like enough for tonight? She'll usually say yes, more that she's ready to move on more than she really is. Because, there's just this, I think we all have this underlying desire to bond and be unified and be in union and experience that, and the bliss that it can bring when it's meant to be and it's right. It's just that, sometimes you can't rush the blossoming of a woman, just like you can't rush the blossoming of a flower. The petals unfold at their harmonious, natural pace, and if you try to rip those petals open, they get bruised and wilted, and it's just a mess. So, women, I invite you to improve your communication, and of course men, you need to also, because a lot of times we're just jumping in and hoping it works out, and it rarely does, and then we keep doing it. And so I think there's also this, women come a lot of times from fatherless homes, just as men do. We're wanting the love of a man and hoping that the guy is at least enough in integrity to be caring, but from what I've witnessed and what I've heard, and even in my own life, not so impressed with that all the time. Even the good ones, or that seem like they would be better, typically have very typical male behavior where they're going too fast. They don't last long enough to make it worth it for the woman. The protection as far as STDs or pregnancy isn't discussed well enough, in an integritous way to protect her, because she's the one that gets the brunt of that if something happens. And then, and then her orgasm piece, getting left out a lot of times. And so, I think it's just, we've lost the art of enjoying each step along the way, of enjoying the journey towards deeper sexual intimacy with someone. And we're just, it's like we're rushing in, and it ends up being disappointing and messy and emotionally traumatizing for the woman a lot of times. It's sad. So, guys, ask questions. Ask her what works for her. Ask her about the pacings, because otherwise you end up losing her. Eventually, she just has had enough and doesn't even want to bother with it anymore. Or she'll disappear, or just not want to deal with it, or whatever. And I think, women, we need to just be really strong and empowered about, hey, this is how my body works. This is what works for me. This is what's worked in the past. And these are my erogenous zones. I really like it when blah, blah, blah. And, I'm open to exploring, but I'm not gonna, go as far as fill in the blank tonight, because that's just too overwhelming for me. And, yeah, so it always boils down to being a good communicator. It's just that's why I'm so passionate about compassionate communication skills, which is a big part of my practice when I work with couples and individuals in relationship and love coaching and Tantra. Without having your voice and having communication skills, how are you supposed to get past this stuff? It's the only way for you to be able to navigate these difficult situations, especially in the bedroom when we all tend to lose our voice, because we don't want to embarrass anybody or make anybody feel bad, and yet there's a lot of indiscretions happening in the bedroom that usually is dishonoring to women most of the time. Because the beauty about you men is most of you are able to come no problem pretty quickly. You're feeling pleasure immediately when you enter her body, whereas she doesn't. So I don't know if you realize that, depending on how she's rigged, but most women do not come during orgasm. And I guess a lot of them fake it, which I never really understood. I don't think that's being honest or serves us at all. But, a lot of times it's just not hitting the right spot. It's not hitting her G-spot or her clitoris because of the angle or whatever, the anatomy of the way you guys fit together. So she's just feeling something enter and in and out of her, and there's not necessarily any pleasure. There might even just be numbness because she's just not ready, and it's like overwhelming. And so she's just feeling it, and maybe it just enjoys the intimacy of being close with you like that. But don't just assume that she's feeling pleasure just because you're entering her body and going back and forth, because you're the one that's probably feeling it and building up your energy, and then that's when typically you'll come, and then she's just sort of like, what? That wasn't really very satisfying kind of thing. So I've heard men tell me that what they do is they'll just make it up in their mind. It's like a mindset, like, I'm going to take care of her first, make sure she's happy, and then you can go into building your energy towards your release. So it's kind of a mindset where you both are enjoying it. Men, ideally, you've learned how to last twice as long or 3 times as long as the 15-minute deal so that you can really enjoy a full-on experience, and the waves and the ebb and flow of all that, and it just lasts longer. It builds the energy. There's just way more to enjoy, because when it's over fast, it's sort of like, oh, that's all that was? Really? Is that all there is to sex? I don't really see what the big deal is about it, is often how women feel. So let's get some skills and get some education and some body mastery so that we can better navigate with each other. And like I said, the communication skills go a long way. Knowing your own body goes a long way. So women and men too, be prepared to share, hey, this is what I really like. I really like this position. It seems to really work at this angle for me. I need a little manual stimulation here or at this time. I love to be talked to if you're into that, or whatever it is, right? There's such a range, and what works for one person totally doesn't work for another person, so you just don't know until you are willing to talk about it with each other. So I highly invite you all to have a sexual discussion before you jump in, because otherwise it's a crapshoot. And it's kind of where a woman maybe sizes you up big time, is that first experience, and she may give you the benefit of the doubt, but it's definitely kind of a disappointing start. And we don't need to be doing it that way. You want her to be impressed and like, give me more, let's do this more, this was fun, and right? And then it's sustainable, and she's enrolled and wants to continue, because otherwise it just kind of falls flat on its face, or it doesn't last, and damage is done and bridges are burned or whatever. And we don't need to be doing that anymore. I think we're at a time we're entering into what's called the age of miracles and the golden age, where we deserve to thrive and proclaim our divine inheritance, to have all these things that we've been maybe missing in our lives for years. So I invite you to reach out to a Tantra practitioner or seminar or myself. I do phone sessions, and of course I practice in Maui, doing live, in-person sessions where I can show you the techniques and, coach you along, and it really can be quite life-changing. And, especially for a man who doesn't really know how to maybe be with a woman or be with a woman's body and it just doesn't maybe come as naturally, and you might need, or you might just feel rusty, because it's been years or something, and you're entering back into the dating game. So that's where, I come in gladly, because it really makes a difference. And, communication skills as well. And we're blessed on Maui to have these free practice groups around conscious communication. And, traditionally it was known as NVC, or nonviolent communication, which isn't a name that any of us are really happy about. So we kind of changed it to more like the compassionate or conscious communication movement. And it is a movement. It's really taking off in China and Asia. And you just have to seek it out and, see if there's practice groups in your area or seminars you can plug into, because I trained under the ones here in Maui, as well, which is Jim and Jory Manske, Manske. There's several websites that are strong, around it, as well as books. And I also studied under Scott Katamas in the Love Coach Academy out of California. So, they're totally worth going to, especially if you're a couple and you can both, upgrade your skills. It can make all the difference, and it can save, and it has saved marriages. So with that, I will leave you on this beautiful day, and I hope you enjoyed that. And please comment and let me know what you like best about it, or whatever you feel led to share. And I'm just holding intention, and I invoke and activate for all of us, for all of humanity, to be inspired to communicate more clearly about our needs, to be compassionate for whatever partner we're with and what they might be experiencing, making sure that we're both taken care of equally, and that we are able to experience more fulfilling and edifying relationships and sexual partnering. Because 2020, there's 2 2s in there. It's all about partnering, and a lot of soulmates are going to be finding each other in these next waves of after coming out of twin flame experiences and karmic relationships and whatnot. So we need to be ready and as adept at sustainable relationship as we can be, so that we can enjoy the success of that. Aloha.